Welcome to the What's Already podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts Mattson,
Better red than dead,
and Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead and hit that follow, subscribe, like, bell notification buttons. Tell a friend about us. Tell a family member about us. Tell a couple of Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, Lighthouse guys about us. Yeah. That's all I got. I don't know how else to say it, but we're kicking off 2025 in January, our new month. Officially, what was this month? Like
original idea?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Or screenplay?
Original screenplays. So movies with original screenplays. So none of this like sequel shit or it's got to be an original idea that came through, which made for some interesting choices. Not the least of which was this first one. We're reviewing The Lighthouse. It was released November 1st, 2019. It was written and directed by Robert and Max Eggers. Directed by Robert Eggers. And then it starred Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe. There's a list, I guess. Valeria Karaman, Logan Hawks, Kyla Nicole, Sean Clark. And I'm going to stop there because the rest of them, they even have a fucking seagull on the list. So that tells you how big this cast list was. It's about two lighthouse keepers who try to maintain their sanity while living on a remote and mysterious New England island in the 1890s. Mattson, this was your pick, so take it away, buddy. Why'd you pick this movie?
Look, I wanted to do something that was not in my wheelhouse, and while it certainly wasn't, I think I'm reminded why I do stay in my wheelhouse, because this movie probably was seen by like 3 people, and they regret watching it, and so did I.
Hate to break it to you, dude, but he gets a 7.4 out of 10, so somebody liked it.
These are people probably like our co-host Alec that need like a sanity check.
Okay, hold up, because this is actually a good story. It's a good movie. The problem is it tried to take an indie idea and turn it into a blockbuster, which is never a good idea.
Well, I mean, okay, so let's jump over. I was going through IMDb, which admittedly gets more reviews from critics than it does from normal people typically, but on Rotten Tomatoes, which gives both, gets a 90% fresh and a 72% from a viewer rating. So to say that it wasn't popular means that your man of the people status is in jeopardy.
Oh, dude, how many people actually watched it though that gave it a 72% fresh rating?
Over 1,000 verified ratings.
Yeah, okay. But those are the only people that are putting reviews up on Rotten Tomatoes and IMDb are people like you, JJ, that actually do that. The movie, let's talk about revenue. How much movie did this money make, Jay?
How much movie did this money make? I don't know how much movie.
How much money did this? Hey, I sound like them when they get hallucinatory. We'll just spin words. And then let me add a thank you on top of that. How much money did it make?
So if you want to talk about money, you can't just talk about money made, because independent films have their own.
Yeah,
like you can't say
criteria. I know.
If you're going to compare it, you have to compare apples to apples and say in an independent world. And in an independent world, it's very rare to actually make a shit ton of money. This movie grossed $9 million over what its budget was. $8 million, $9 million. So in an independent world, especially a small, weird independent film like this, that's technically has no genre, like it doesn't list as anything. You can go to different places and they all list it as something different. Psychological thriller, a horror. There is no genre, and it was not defined by the movie's creators. So it's a decent amount of money for an independent film, especially black and white, that was filmed in not quite 1-to-1 aspect ratio. But yeah, I can't say it was a flop.
I mean, it didn't make its money back, but it was close. I mean, I'm not here to say it was a flop. I'm not here to say it wasn't interesting. It's just was an odd movie, but that's what it was always supposed to be. It wasn't anything but that.
Sure. Well, and it's based off of an unfinished short story by Poe, which makes it weird right out the gate.
Sure.
And by saying based, that doesn't remove the, like when I say unfinished, the short story had like a page and it never got past the introduction of characters. Like it's not like there was some source material here that they were able to build off of. Like it was like, okay, here's a story about a couple guys on an island with a lighthouse. Go. So that's why it can still fit within the original screenplay.
The
But
real
there was
question we all want to know is, would you or would you not bang the mermaid?
no,
Dude, 100% I'm banging the mermaid.
no, not when you know like the actual history of mermaids. They're out to kill you. Like I'm not banging the mermaid,
I'm
especially
banging the
with her,
mermaid.
especially with like her giant fishtail vagina. Weird. That was the
Yeah.
weirdest visual scene of this entire. The jerk off scene was really weird. Like it ranks up there with some like dolphin sex conversation shit. Like really weird.
Well, the other one, when Tom was up in the lighthouse and that sticky substance fell down, I'm assuming, was that sperm?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because he was like on shrooms and doing his thing. I was like, oh man, oof.
Yeah. It's a weird fucking movie. There's some weird shit. I mean, I don't know. Alec, why do you like this movie? Because I can tell that you enjoyed it.
Because it's weird. That's why I liked it.
We are talking to the dude that loved rubber. So.
Rubber.
It was weird. It was out there. I will say I actually didn't really like both Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson in this. I think having those two, I mean, they're great, right? They're phenomenal actors. They did a phenomenal job. But for this specific type of movie, I think one of them has to be unknown. Either get an or just less known, because having both of them, you're trying to sell tickets 100% with using both of them. And then you get the problem where I'm going to say your Mattsons, right? Go to the movie and they're expecting Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe. And what they get is something fucking strange. And so then you're just disappointed because you're expecting something completely different, right? It's almost like a bait and switch with what they're giving you, versus this is a chance for like to really rely on the independent story, which the story is fucking strange, but also kind of cool. Like I
tell us the story, Alec. What's the story here?
The absolute gaslighting by Willem Dafoe's character, like, got me for the first half of the film, where he's like, "Oh yeah, we missed the boat by 2 weeks." I'm like, "What? Okay, maybe they're going to stay." And then you get it later where it's like, "Dude, you just smashed up the boat and you chased me around with an axe." And then you have to question, what is this guy actually done versus what is he saying that's been done? And so the whole just manipulation, gaslighting that goes on, I was just intrigued the entire time. I was like, oh, this dude's pure evil and I'm here for it.
I think that's what triggered me like the most of this movie is, and trigger's the wrong word, but like what kept me watching the movie with interest versus trying to do something else was like the first 90 minutes of this movie. Like I'm wondering what the fuck is at the top of this. I'm expecting some sort of like Lovecraftian, because we keep seeing the mermaids and then we see the tentacles, and like I'm like I'm feeling this like serious HP Lovecraft vibe, so I'm expecting, and then he won't let him in the upper tower, so I'm like there's got to be some within the light of the tower, like some demon god, or you know what I mean, like Cthulhu's up there or some shit, right? Like that's what I keep thinking, and what I was aiming for is like that's why. So we know why the Tom, like the young guy's crazy, right? Like we know why he's cuckoo, because he's stuck on this fucking island with a psychopath, or what seems that way. To your point out, getting gaslit and like bossed around, and like the constant like power dynamic that's going on is really weird. And then you find more out about his character later, where the guy's actually a really big asshole. And then, but like that's to me. And then you've got this old guy that, like, I'm like, okay, I know why he's nuts, but why is Willem Dafoe's character's nuts? Because he's been doing this for years. It's not like this is his first rodeo. Like, he's not new to this gig. Like, so why is he nuts? And then I'm thinking, okay, there's something actually. The reason he won't let him up there is there's like this god or this demon or this monster of some sort that's controlling him, and that's where this other power dynamic. So that's what I kept waiting for. And then it's like, there's no answer. And I think that's where I get the most frustrated with independent movies like this. And I shouldn't label it just independent movies, but weird ass movies like this, especially from like the Eggers brothers. Because if you've ever watched The Witch, and I'm sure neither of you have, it's the same. And because Alec, you don't want to watch that one. That one's real. This one has some creepy elements. That one's geared toward scaring the shit out of your ass. But like, it's a really good film in the same vein as this, in that there's no real fucking answers to anything. And that's where I get really frustrated. Is it's like, I understand ambiguity and I'm okay with it. What I'm not okay with is a hint of ambiguity and then nothing. Like, it's not even ambiguous. It's like, you don't know shit. Because at the very end, like, he's looking at the light, and then it cuts to him fucking getting his eyeball or his guts eaten by birds, and you're like, okay, hold on. How'd we get here? Is he hallucinating again? Is he? And so ambiguity to me means that I could figure out there's like one of a handful of solutions. I don't know what the fuck's going on by the end of this movie, and that frustrates me. Like, I want to at least be able to debate the different options.
Yeah, well,
right?
I think what a movie that does it well is, like, for me, in my opinion, like in Inception, where at the end you're left to wonder, well, is it spinning? Is it going to stop? Like, it gives you have that, like, well, there's like 1, 2, maybe 3 options of where we could talk about that a lot with your friends. But I agree with you here, Jay. It's like the end, and I was like, well, that was a lot from, like, that was like an A to like Z type thing. Like, where'd that come from? Because I like the second guessing of, I'm with Alec on this, the fact of, like, well, how much of it actually happened? Like, you're like, oh, did that, but nothing in this movie gives me enough grounding to actually feel like I know what did or didn't, or have really any hypothesis. And I think that's at times what gets really difficult, because this movie just felt weird for weird's sake, and I question if there was intention behind that, or maybe I'm just too dumb to know. But I mean, just left your head kind of in a tizzy.
Yeah. And I'm sure, Alec, you don't give a shit about that level of ambiguity. Like,
Nope. All I needed to know was it's bad luck to kill a seabird.
and boy, does he.
Yeah.
Like, what a violent fucking way to kill the seagull.
I thought this movie was rated R because of that. I was like, damn, animal violence right there. Beat the shit out of that seagull. He beat that thing like 10 times.
Yeah.
That was
a
great.
mess. Even in black and white, you could see all that blood.
Mm-hmm.
That was a mess.
I will say one thing I do have to compliment. Well, there's a few things. One, to a point you were talking about earlier, Alec, about the Mattsons that are expecting these amazing performances by well-known actors. For me, one, Willem Dafoe, he was what I expected. That dude can play some weird people. Like, let's just call it what it is. I knew now just having seen this movie, if I was a screencaster, I'd be like, give me Willem Dafoe. The dude's already like 2 cuckoos from Cocoa Puffs. Like, he's perfect. He probably was like, look, this is me on Friday night. And I'm like, I probably is. He was great. But who I continue to be impressed with, and I know this movie came out years ago now, but Robert Pattinson, let's not forget, he was extremely typecast to a very well-known movie trilogy that gets made fun of, aka Twilight. But he's been from Tenet to this to, we reviewed that movie that he was in, that he was a pastor. Remember that creepy pastor? Yeah. I don't remember what that movie was called. We reviewed it.
Devil All the Time.
Yeah. And there's some other movies I should be able to name. Like, he's a really good actor. Like, the monologue that he went on when he talked about the goddamn farts, which one? That was funny. I was going to text you, Jay, but I forgot. Like, that part made me chuckle. Yeah. But that monologue he went on, and the way, like, he just, when he wasn't talking, but the way he looked into the camera, and like the physical acting, which it's not like John Wick acting, but like, it's different. Like, I was just really impressed with him. I expected William Dafoe to give me what he gave me, but Robert Pattinson in this movie he's got dimensions. He really does. And I was captivated by his performance. Not that William Dafoe didn't do great. I just expected him to do it because he is that. But Robert Pattinson was awesome. And then another thing I liked about this movie, the eeriness of the shooting. It felt like it was an old time movie. Obviously, it was by design, but they hit it on the head. The thing that one of the scenes I remember the most is when they had the camera when they were walking up to the house for the first time, and what that looked like. That felt like an old timey style shot, and I appreciated that. And then the music, and really the most reoccurring sound is the foghorn. Like, I mean, that when Jay said this has shades of horror, this movie wasn't scary at all, but they did a good job captivating the eeriness and keeping you a little on edge, especially towards the beginning. Like the first 30 minutes for me, you were still kind of feeling out like, what the hell is happening? And they did a great job of that. And then that foghorn, even towards the end, I thought that was exceptional.
Yeah, the audio in it is unnerving. Like the fact that there's just these sounds like that are just obnoxious in the background, and then they'll pull them to the foreground and then pull them back to the back, but they're never absent from the movie, right? And I think that's like, to your point, like that foghorn and that like of the sound of the freaking light spinning too, like you could hear that the whole time, and it starts to like grate, and then it kind of goes away for a while because you get, that resonance gets in your ears, and you're like, okay, I'm used to it, and then all of a sudden, like they'll push it to like during the weird jerk off scene. As much as I hate to talk about that, like they bring all those sounds to the foreground while he's like, and I'm like, stop, like this just makes that much more uncomfortable. And I will say that this movie, to your point, I think it goes to the audio and it goes to the filming. As much as I hate 1:1 or 1:19:1, which is what this actually was, like that almost square aspect ratio, like that mixed with the black and white, and the really harsh black and white. Like it wasn't like a typical artistic black and white. Like it's a harsh, darker black and white. And then you add in the creepy sounds that are constantly there. And like, I was uncomfortable a lot of this movie, even when nothing was going on. Like, I'm just like, God, this movie needs to hurry up and get over. Cause like, I don't like watching it, which really puts you in a position to kind of relate to Robert Pattinson's character. Cause you can tell he's like, I don't want to fucking be here. And then it only gets worse when he kills the seagull, and then like they're delayed, right? Like they can't, it's like, oh God, this is horrible. Like we were one day from getting off this island, and now we're stuck because of this storm. And then like the fact that they're always in the rain after that, for that the duration of that big storm.
Ugh.
I'm like, God, I hate being stuck in the rain. Like I'm the guy that'll sit in my car for half an hour to wait for the rain to slow down. If I'm trying to go into a grocery store or something and it's raining real bad, I'm like, I'm not going in. No, I'm out. And so like watching that made me uncomfortable. So I will say, from that perspective, they did a really good job of putting me in the position that I feel like I could relate to Robert Pattinson's character, his discomfort, right? Which was like, ooh, I don't like this at all. And then on top of that, I really wanted to know what was up in the top of the lighthouse. So I was like, damn. And then the only thing that threw me off was when he starts talking about when he tells the story, because my favorite like monologue of his, and I guess it wasn't quite a monologue, but the dialogue sequence where he's telling his past, like how he changed his name and he watched that foreman drown, and he's just like, I probably should have done something, but I didn't want to. I was like, fuck, this guy is just as cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs as Willem Dafoe's character. And but all of a sudden now we know that it's not just this place that's driving him crazy. He was a little off before he got there. And so, yeah, I mean, from a storytelling perspective, it's an interesting movie. I can't deny that. As much as I want to hate this movie, like I was like, there's actually some really good aspects to this film that they did very well still not something I want to rewatch just because
No.
it's like not interesting enough to me. But a first watch, I was like, okay, this is not my style at all. But this was pretty well done for what it is.
It's not my style, and let's be honest, this movie they could have taken out 20 minutes easy. I mean, there's so many things that if they wanted to condense it a little bit, not. But I know that was by design. They want you to look at things, to hear things. You took this, shortened it by 20 minutes. I think this movie would have been more bearable and something that I could have considered like, well, really good acting performances, interesting subject matter, but the ambiguity and the length and I don't know. I think at times it's a little meandering and slow, and I think it's kind of I don't know. To me, it's kind of a one-trick pony. I don't know what I'm going to see a second time. That I'm like, oh wow, I missed that. Like the ambiguity. I know what this all is because I don't even know if the brothers who directed this know what it all is. They just wrote it and hoped we interpreted it because that's what they were hoping for.
Yeah, I was reading an article, an interview that they did where they were like, we didn't even know what the third act was going to be until we finished putting dialogue on paper he's like, we had a good treatment for the first and second act. And then we were like, well, we can't figure out the third act. And then we start writing the dialogue. And then we were like, okay, so now that the dialogue's all there and the first two acts are written in a screenplay format, now we're ready to take on the third. Cause it really dictated the direction that they went for the third act. And I'm like, that's how you know this, like you just and to their point, like I guess to their credit, like that's true creative process, right? Like because like for example, Good Will Hunting was the same way. Like they wrote most of the dialogue of that movie as they were shooting it, and they would sit around and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck would have conversations like they were the characters in this movie, and like that's where most of their dialogue comes from. If you ever watch interviews with them, it's an intriguing listen to see that creative process. We're like, we know we want to tell this overarching story, right? We have this treatment that we want to deal with. And then when you start putting in a screenplay format, like that's difficult because you got to go from act 1, 2, 3, plus you got to get all these scenes down. How does this drive the movie? So listening to them talk about the fact that they didn't even know what the hell they were going to do in act 3. Now, I will say again, to just my annoyance, and this is me as a personal thing watching a movie, like I wish they could have honed in on a couple of different options that had happened versus who the fuck knows what happened truly on this island over this.
Like, who's the blonde kid?
That's my interpretation is that's the dude that he let drown. But
I was wondering
because he's the only one that saw him, but I don't know. Because the other guy we saw that could have been was at least characters that were named and talked about was the other guy that he replaced. But we see his head in the crab trap. So it's like, but again, did he actually see that dude's head? This guy just lost his shit from start to finish?
No idea.
And then you got to wonder, like, the other part that got me was when he's reading in his journals, like, because I'll be honest, when he busted in and started reading the dude's journals, like, that was the introduction of, I was expecting some weird shit to be in the journals. Like, it's where I was thinking, like, he would drop a name or something that you're like, that's who's up in that tower, right? But instead, we just get, this guy's a shitty worker, and I'm like, okay. So my question, and this is where I think the thing that I landed on is that Robert Pattinson's character is actually the one that's crazy. And he comes there and the guy's fucking cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs from start to finish. And Willem Dafoe's having to deal with this dude. And in order to try to keep himself safe, they're having this power dynamic issue where he's like, no, I'm the boss. You're fucking nuts. Shut your pie hole and stay the fuck around. And he has to limit, like, you don't want him in a tower with you up there. That's a very limited area with a lot of danger involved, right? So that's how I kind of was like, okay, this is my interpretation. I don't think Willem Dafoe's character, I think he's weird, right? That he's a weird dude based on what he does. But I don't think he's the real crazy one. I think that's Robert Pattinson's character. And we're just piecing together like how Robert Pattinson's character's mind goes to, I'm coming here, starting fresh, getting away from this situation that I was in, but putting myself right back in that situation. We see the violent tendencies. We see.
Yeah, but how do you explain the alcohol, though? Because if you're feeling the way as Tom, whatever his last name is, Willem Dafoe's character, I won't be getting shiz face drunk with someone I feel like could shank me like 3 seconds later.
Alcoholics are alcoholics, dude. If he's to that point that he's drinking like a fish like that, he's drinking. That's the one thing he won't be able to stop, because that's a disease. You know what I mean? Like that's
True.
not something where he can control.
Well, then
that,
he better
which
hope
is
he
part of the
knows he
reason
might die.
Well, for sure, but that's also part of the reason he probably feeds him the alcohol, right? Because if they're both shit faced, then they're on a level playing field, at least in the alcoholic's mind. But
Monkey juice.
I will say that one scene that got me, that I was like, because I was borderline alcoholic for a while. I mean, Mattson, you knew me in those days. I don't know, Alec.
Yeah.
You probably listened to me in some of those days, but
Ooh.
you didn't know me. But like, I drank a lot, and what made me like laugh in a very sad way was when they drank the turpentine mist, like the cleaning turpentine.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask
right?
about that, like the concoction they made
with
Honey.
Yeah,
Is that what you're talking about, Jay, when they made that drink?
Yeah,
I was going to ask
because they ran out of the
I was like,
actual
what
monkey
was
juice.
that?
I think it's turpentine. It's whatever he was using to clean, which back then would have been turpentine. I mean, we still use turpentine, but they mix it with honey, and it does have some level of alcohol content. But that's alcoholism for you. Like, I have a good friend that was trying to get clean and drank hand sanitizer and trying to keep alcohol. Like, that's just that level. So I watched that and I had a very sad chuckle, because I was like, I had never been there to that level, but I've had friends that were, and that's a sad state of affairs when you are willing to drink something that potentially could kill you rather easily in order to get that fix. Like,
Well, the internet says turpentine contains no alcohol.
oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I assumed that anything that had that level of cleaning power and burn my nose smell would have some level of alcohol.
Considered toxic if ingested. So,
yeah.
Well, something that they
Great.
had.
So there's a whole nother fucking level where they drink it was monkey juice turpentine the entire time.
Could have been. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, and maybe that's what was creating the visions and the hallucinations. I don't know. There's just so many, different routes you could take with this whole thing that I'm like, oh, it's exhausting to kind of think through.
I thought we were going to get a little bit more like something actually scary or truly eerie or something of that nature, because it definitely, the scene, like you were saying, Jay, what was really up in the lighthouse? Was there actually something there? I think I was a little let down that there wasn't something. I think there could have been more payoff there, because I kind of was conditioned to expect something like that. And I think that's definitely a little bit more of my letdown, was where the way the movie ended, I was kind of just like, oh, that's it. Like, all right. Yeah, I think that's how I felt.
I get it. And I agree.
Not me.
Alex, like, I don't care.
I didn't need to see the monster.
Did he stick his hand in the flame, or like what was that when he was yelling and like when he was looking at the light? What do we think that was?
I don't know. Like, and I think that's where I think he was just screaming, and that's another one where you can like. There's so many interpretations of it. He was, in my head, he was screaming because there was nothing but a light, right? Like, so why, in his mind, why did he keep him out? And then he had to, like, he was a complete and utter asshole to this guy. Like, it ends, their relationship ends the way it ends. And so, like, with a friggin' axe to the head. So it's just like, but then he went up. So he's in this same situation that he left previously, only for nothing, because he gets up there and it's just the light, right? But like, who knows? I mean, you could say that he saw something in the light that freaked him out, and then he blacks out because of whatever and ends up on the rocks and dead. I mean, you just don't know, right? And that's the part that I'm like, fuck. It's just weird that there's no even options for what it could have happened. Like, he just, whatever he sees out there, he doesn't like, or makes him scream, or whatever, interpretation you want to run with. But because all we see is his face, you just don't know. It's a weird choice. But the Eggers boys are weird people. when it comes to their writing and shit.
So Reddit says what they were drinking was lighter fluid.
Yeesh.
No, thank you. I don't think there's any amount of honey that can make that taste good.
No. Well, I
Let's
mean, there's
see.
no amount of honey that could make turpentine taste good either, but lighter fluid? Like, I don't know that I would. I don't know. I guess
Let's see.
alcohol is flammable, but
All right. So the alcohol used in lighter fluid composition of the invention will generally comprise approximately between 0.5 weight percentage and approximately 98 weight percent. Hold on. So there's a lot of alcohol in here.
potentially a lot. If
Yeah.
it's 0.5, there's nothing.
Yeah, it varies between the brands.
Yeah, 0.5 is like the same as a beer.
Yeah, no, it just depends on the brand, but I guess their brand back then,
Oh, I'm sure back then, like they didn't try to.
because they didn't
water shit
have all
down
these
by
like
then, and-
petroleum-based options that we have today. So my guess is it probably was heavily alcoholic-based.
I'm sure it was. Well, and it would need to burn depending on what they're using it for, and they were using it to keep that fire going. I'm sure if that's what they were using was the lighter fluid. Ugh. Ugh. But I mean, I did that same to my buddy drinking fucking hand sanitizer, so I did have my limits, but a lot of alcoholics don't at that point. But yeah, weird fucking movie. And I will say the best part of this movie, regardless, is like the dynamics between the two. Like if I were to take out the ending and the fact that I don't know what the hell's going on, and then the weird shit like the mermaid sex and the jerk off scene, like that, to me served no purpose. You guys know me. I'm all for a sex scene and nudity and all that shit if there's a purpose behind it. But I felt like that scene was for nothing other than shock value. And I'm like, I don't love that. But the dynamic between these two characters, and I think that comes from the ability for these actors to do a lot with little, because it's not like there's a ton of dialogue either. And a lot of the dialogue that's there is this 1890s Northeast maritime speech, right? Like, so it's like the sailor speak. So half the time I'm like, what the fuck are they even saying? But I could tell the intentions between these two. And so kudos to these two, because they rocked it. And I'm with you, Mattson. Like I was forced to watch the Twilight movies for Casey, and they're terrible, and I hated him in them. Like I was like, I will never watch anything with him in it. But to his credit, like there was I forget the name of it now. Anyway, there's one where he's in New York. It's another little independent film, kind of strange. Let me look and see, because now it's gonna bother me if I don't remember. It was between Twilight movies. Remember Me, movie called Remember Me. Very sad. It was one of the twist movies that I was not, that when it happened, the ending happened, I went, shut the fuck up. I did not see that coming at all. And it was very sad. But very interesting movie. And so I saw that. Casey made me watch that because she loved Pattinson. And I was like, oh, he's actually really good in this. And then he did Water for Elephants. And from then on, I was like, I'm sold. He's really good. And he's done nothing that I'm like, everything since then. He's just been amazing.
He's a great actor. He's definitely someone that changed their fate, which hard to do.
Yeah, he hung in there and really kind of came through you made Twilight.
Oh, we didn't even talk about freaking Batman, for instance.
Well, sure.
I thought he was great in that too.
Yeah. I still think my favorite performance from him is Tenet. Like, he made that movie for me. Like,
he was awesome.
I liked it a lot. We talked about it. I thought it was great, but he was the best part of that movie, in my opinion.
Oh, I remember, because that was the one I hadn't seen some of his others, because we did a lot of his other movies after that. I was blown away by him, and I was like, I never knew he could do that. Had no idea.
And I love John David Washington. He's amazing, but Robert Pattinson steals that movie. Every scene he's in, he just chews it up. So I was really excited because Willem Dafoe is one of my favorite actors, period. Like, I love all the weird shit he does. I've seen a lot of weird fucking movies that Willem Dafoe's done because of Willem Dafoe. Like, movies that I walk away going, I should not have watched that, but because he's in it, I'll watch it.
Is he a weird dude in real life?
I don't know. Like, I don't. Based on the interviews I've seen, no, he seems like a pretty normal dude. He just seems like he has the range and he enjoys being.
You know how I feel
strange
about people
characters.
that can exude that level of like a Mel Gibson stuff, and he was really zoned in. I just always believe those people.
Yeah.
Just there's a screw that if you're that good, something's slightly off with you.
Yeah, I get that.
Willem Dafoe can fit a lot of Skittles in his mouth. That I do know.
Yeah, he's got a very large mouth. And he's done some weird shit. Like he did one, I'm trying to remember the name of it, the Antichrist. That was a very strange movie. Very strange movie. And a lot of nudity, and I don't recommend that one for you, Mattson. But it's a weird, it's a strange movie. Alec, you might like that movie. It's very odd.
I do like weird movies.
It's got a lot of very good character progression type stuff, like very character driven, very strange, hallucinogenic type shit. It was funny because there's a rumor that there's a lot of full frontal nudity in that movie. And there's a rumor that they used a body double for his character because his dick's too big. And so, like, and then I've read ones where it's like it's got an odd shape to it or something, like it's a weird look, and so that's why they did it. But like the prevailing like rumor is that his dick's too big, and that's why they used the body double for him. But
why would that be a bad thing?
I have no idea, because it's shocking and it takes away from the movie. Like all you think about is how big fucking Willem Dafoe's dick is. I have no idea, but that's the prevailing sentiment, is that's why.
Could you imagine being that body double?
Yeah. We need you to come in and be full frontal because
your dick is small.
Because the hammer over here can't be on camera.
This is a bad premise for a movie. An unnamed couple have sex in their Seattle apartment while their unsupervised infant son, Nick, climbs up to the bedroom window and falls out to its death. Wow.
I told you, it's a fucked up movie.
It's very specific.
Yeah, it's a fucked up movie. I think it's the same guy. I'm trying to remember who made that one too, because it's the same guy that did. There was like a 2-part movie that a lot of pretty big actors at the time were in, including Willem Dafoe, I think. What's the damn name of that movie? Nymphomaniac. Same guy that made the movie Nymphomaniac. He makes very strange movies. I don't recommend that. I watched part 1 of Nymphomaniac and I couldn't bring myself to watch part 2 because I saw no point in it. It just was to me, it was just a reason to have a bunch of gratuitous nudity and weird sex trying to do a character progression with an actual nymphomaniac. And I'm like, look, just don't know that worked for me, at least. So very weird movie. But anyway, I love these two. I love the dynamic between the two of them, even though it's a really weird fucking movie.
Yeah, this movie you're talking about, JJ,
Which one?
The one
Antichrist.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I'll pass for sure. I've seen the movie just reading the 2-paragraph summary on Wikipedia.
Yeah, you should. It's not an easy watch. That's why I say Alec.
Where can I stream it?
Alec would probably really like it. Because it's in the vein of what's that fucking movie Snuff made us watch for the Patreon? Vulgar.
Yeah.
It's in that vein where there's just a lot of
What?
It's just uncomfortable.
Then smashes a large block of wood onto his erect penis, causing him to lose consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
She then masturbates him until he ejaculates blood.
I told you it's a weird fucking
She
movie.
drills a hole through his leg, bolting a heavy grindstone through the wound, and tosses the wrench she used under the cabin. This sounds like what's the clown movie with the Saw type stuff, dude? I'm like, ugh.
It's rough, dude. It's a weird movie.
I know what I'm watching tonight.
Alec, let me know how you like it. Because I will say this. Willem Dafoe is masterful in it. Like, I cannot stress enough. I could not take my eyes off the screen. No matter what weird ass shit was happening, Willem Dafoe kills it. He's a weird fucking dude. And that is by far one of the weirdest movies I've ever watched.
She cuts her clitoris off,
Mm-hmm.
and they show that.
It's a weird movie, dude.
How's that rated R?
very
That should be like
gratuitous.
rated. Don't see this.
Is it only rated R? I thought it was an NC-17, but
Let's see. You
I
might
haven't
be
looked
right.
in a very long time.
I might have just skipped over that. I don't.
I don't
know.
remember that guy doing anything that's just rated R anymore.
It doesn't even say, so it's probably whatever you're talking about. Oh my
But yeah,
God.
it's
Not rated.
Dude, this is the type of, Alec would probably love this girl.
it's a weird.
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I'll be interested to hear what you think, because like I said, it's a strange. It's something. It made me uncomfortable far more than Lars von Trier. That's the writer director, and he's never done anything that's not like fucking make you question your existence type shit. Like,
Beautiful.
he is a strange son of a bitch. You'd probably love all of his movies, because there's something wrong with him in all the best ways from a creative perspective. But anyway, back to the Lighthouse. Are we ready to rate this thing?
I think we are.
All right, now that I've completely and utterly disturbed Mattson with the Antichrist.
The film that shocked the world. Yeah, I can.
That tracks.
Shooketh the world.
All right, I'm first to rate
You're
this.
first because it's your pick.
I'm gonna give it a 2. Almost gave it a 2.5.
Wow.
Mm.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 2. It would have been a 2.5 if this movie wasn't so long, but I was conditioned to know that this movie was the aspect ratio and the black and white, but for whatever reason, because of what they were trying to portray, I could get behind it. I was like, all right, I don't know, but like Zack Snyder just intentionally doing that to a movie that has no reason to have an aspect ratio like that or be in black and white, that just pisses me off. There's no reason to do that except he just thinks he's the coolest director on the planet. This movie, I'm like, well, this is what it would have looked like if they had tried to film this in the 1890s, even though technology didn't exist, but it's fine with me. So I was behind that. Phenomenal actors. Weird movie. Slow movie. Eerie in a good way. Kind of lacks direction, and I thought the ending was just, it could have been more. It really could have been, and I wanted it to be more. And that's where, if it had a really intriguing ending, like a lot of what JJ was talking about, like some supernatural spin or something, like, I think this movie could have been elevated quite a bit. I think it could have been something that I was hoping for it to be, but it just didn't have the shock and awe that I was really hoping for at the end. So for that, I think I probably surprised people giving it a 2. Like, I'll never watch it again, but like, there's a lot to talk about. It's an interesting premise, and I think they did a good job, but it's definitely not a mainstream movie. So for my people out there, like, probably not going to enjoy it, but if you do want to watch it, like, I
The
think
people enjoyed it, Mattson.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised to an extent. No, the people didn't enjoy it, Alec.
the people did enjoy it.
The people that are you people, or the
What
Sundance
review
movie,
site would
yes,
be?
the movie festival people, or people that watch the Lars von Trier's Antichrist people probably would enjoy it, and we don't want to be those people.
How can you say you're of the people if you don't listen to the people?
Yeah, of the people has to include all people, sir.
Yeah.
I'm talking about normal people,
Define normal.
not Alec's people, is what I'm trying to say. Most of JJ's people I vibe with. It's just sometimes JJ strays off the beaten path. Anyways, I digress. I'm going too long. I gave it a 2.
Mattson represents the lemming people. No, I'm just kidding. Alec, your turn, buddy. Tell us what you thought. What do you rate this
Oh, I
thing?
like this movie.
Yeah,
It was
I do.
weird. It was fun. It was out there. I don't need the supernatural ending. Just the crazy gaslighting and going slowly insane is enough for me. I'm gonna give this movie a 4.
Wow.
I think it was really, really good. I don't know if it's something I can watch frequently, but I'm definitely throwing this back on and just sitting there and enjoying it because it was really good. I liked it.
Nice. Oh man, I'm gonna give it a 2.5, and I think I would have really scored this high if I had a couple of options to choose from on what happened. And like I'll spend my review, like my scoring time saying what I would have liked to have had happen. My ending, if I were ending this film, he would have been staring into the lighthouse and having this like realization of how cuckoo he was, how nuts he was, and going back to and change for reframing in his own mind the story that he told to Willem Dafoe about this foreman that he let drown, and have it be that he actively murdered him. And like it's this cycle that he goes through, right? Like that's what I think would have driven me to be like, this was fucking great. Because the whole time, up until a certain point, I would have been blaming Willem Dafoe for the reason that this guy's losing his marbles. But instead, and the environment, right? Willem Dafoe and the environment. But instead, it turns out he's the guy that's the problem from the beginning. And you don't have to give it that level of definition that I'm talking about, but like that's how I would have ended it, right? Now, I'm not the most leave it ambiguous guy. So I would have turned it around and have him go to this flashback where he's actively the problem. And like even to the point where maybe it's his own journal that he thinks is he's reading. You know what I mean? Like every piece of things that make you think Willem Dafoe's the problem is some manifestation of him being the problem, and he's going through this cycle again and again, right? Where he goes to a new place and somebody ends up dying, but it's under, weird circumstances that can be explained as not his problem. Anyway, that's how I would have done this. And I think if it had done something of that level, or where I could have at least speculated between a couple of different things and not have to completely create my own ideas around what happened, I don't love that, having to do that. I get why they did it. I understand that that's for some people. Like they're okay with that level of ambiguity. I'm just not. I think I would have scored it around a 4 or 5. I do think there's some unnecessary shit. Like
a 5. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, Jay.
I would have been close. If it had a good, solid ending that explained things, even if it was a weird ass, like alien in the fucking, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care what it was. Like, if you had given me some reason for what we'd been doing all this, besides two guys just losing it, I would have probably, because I really enjoyed the dynamic. And I'm with Alec. We've talked about this before. I love a movie watching people digress into psychoses. Like, I think that is such an interesting concept, and that's terrible of me to say, but if I could sit and study someone that's slowly going crazy, I would be more than interested in that, because I think that level of watching people's minds deteriorate, that deterioration level is interesting to me. That says a lot about me, I'm sure, but it intrigues me, right? And so the fact that I don't understand why is hard for me, and that's a me thing, but it's hard for me. And so that's where I mark it down. But I think based on how it was acted, I think the things that would have kept me going were the unnecessary jerking off scene. And not even necessarily the unnecessary jerking off scene, but the length of that scene. And then like the weird giant fucking mermaid vagina inside. Like it was weird. Like there were some visuals that I was like, that doesn't add value to this movie. This is just Robert Eggers being a fucking weirdo. Like that's all that was. And when it pulls me back and I go, you're just being fucking weird now. Like that's when I can't give it a full on 5. So I think if you get rid of some of that shit that was unnecessary and then add some at least less ambiguous stuff to the ending, I could have given it a 4 or 4.5. Maybe a 5, depending on how much you pulled out of it. But I didn't even feel the length like Mattson, because it's only an hour, like 49-minute movie, which is right there in the sweet spot. But I could get where it feel long. It didn't feel long to me, but it was weird. And it was so weird, and I just lost. Like, I have no interest in watching it again because I know how frustrated I'm going to feel at the end of these great performances and very interesting, eerie movie that to me goes nowhere, like has no purpose and doesn't allow me to even lean towards something. So that's why it's getting a 2.5 for me. But I was expecting way worse, and maybe that's part of the reason I was pleasantly surprised when Mattson picked it. I was like, fuck. It's like I've kind of actively avoided this movie because I watched The Witch and I know how fucking weird Eggers gets. But yeah, I can't complain about watching it. I liked it, especially for this topic. It was a good way to kick off the year. So well done, Mattson. Good pick, even though you may not agree with it being a good pick on your end. I liked it. All right, well, I'm excited for the rest of the month and for the rest of the year, really. Lots of good stuff to choose from. Excited. Got some good topics lined up for the first few months. But with that, Alec, tell everybody where they can find us.
Happy to, JJ. So thank you for tuning into our review of The Lighthouse 2025, kicking off with original screenplay month. Mattson has made sure we started off bad, or at least he tried to anyway. So thanks for that, Mattson. Thanks to our current patrons, Rich and JJ's Low-Hanging Glistening Christmas Balls, for picking the topic of original screenplays and the first movie. So I think we can blame JJ's Glistening Low-Hanging Christmas Balls for this pick as well. But I'm still going to blame Mattson.
Probably a lot of things you can blame for.
Yeah.
Low-hanging, glistening Christmas balls.
So Patreon's a place to get involved, guys. Every month we have topics to choose from, topics to suggest, and any kind of topic that you want. And then we pick movies within that topic that you then get to vote on as well. So join us there at What's Our Verdict Reviews to get really involved in the content that we make. With that, I will kick it back to the Titan of Terror, the Wazir of WAP, a JJ.
Yeah. Thanks, Alec. Appreciate that. We do appreciate our Patreons. Our patrons they keep us going. They make it a lot easier to continue making the podcast. So if you want us to keep doing it, want to help that out, we'd appreciate it. Plus, you get to have a lot of fun over there. It's a whole different world. My inappropriateness is on full fucking go on that side. I don't hold back at all. You guys probably listen to this and go, he holds back. I do, actually.
Hey, we were once labeled as a wholesome family entertainment, but
yeah, that must have been without me, because
or certainly not
going down a real dark road when you were gone for a while there.
Certainly not this episode.
No, yeah, this one got weird.
Yeah. Wholesome family entertainment turned left way too long ago.
That's fair. I've just been dragging your wholesome asses my direction the whole time. Little did you know I've been watering you assholes down. Maybe not Alec. I thought I was until
you're making me a better person.
Yeah. Alec's actually making me look good sometimes. JJ's not as crazy as he thinks he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, go join us there on Patreon. It's fun. And we appreciate those that have been there and are listening to us. We're growing rapidly we're pushing 400. I know that sounds so measly, but yeah,
we started with 0.
I know.
Oh yeah.
Well, we went from like 300 to 360. I think we're up to 360 now. We're getting up there to where it's like the last few we've been climbing pretty quick. So we appreciate those that have now subscribed to us here on YouTube, those that watch us and those that listen. Thank you. So
thank you for being and listening to your man of the people. So I appreciate that, everybody.
Thanks for getting the true opinions as well.
Yeah.
You know,
if anybody's a man of if anybody's a Mattson fan, please let me know. I want to meet you.
Well, we know at least one. So with that, as always, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Whoa.